In the early 1960s, Eugene Murret was a Jesuit student training to be a priest, and he wrote a letter inviting his cousin to speak to the Jesuits about his experiences living in the Soviet Union. That cousin, Lee Harvey Oswald.
Whoa, that's it, Hunley? That's it?
Hey, do you want more?
No, that's all I need. I know the story, but we're going to get into him later. But whoa, yeah, that's a weird clip.
Yeah, it is. This whole thing, like, I'm expecting to be completely surprised because I don't know anything that's going on. Even the thumbnail, I'm like, I don't know. I can't find any pictures of these people to save my life. So I'm like, you know what? It's going to be shadowy family behind Lee Harvey Oswald. That's the sentiment here.
Well, it's not so shadowy. I mean, we've discussed this in CIA and the Family. And if you want to see what we're talking about, I recommend you go see that episode, because the CIA likes to operate in families. And that's a trust issue. I think other intelligence services around the world probably do the same thing. I don't really know because I'm not examining them. But ours will take people like Michael Payne, because his relatives will go back to the Declaration of Independence, and they have ways to test and check whether your family is loyal, you know, if you've been around a long time.
Or the orphans.
Or I was just going to say, or they come out of the orphanage like Dick Carlson and Lee Harvey Oswald.
I was going to say, so in this case, it's both.
Oh, no, it absolutely is both. Nobody knows the story I'm about to tell you, people. I am the only one who knows this story. And I had to dig out my 2013 documents out of my files for this story, because I use this a lot in my Oswald screenplay research for Oliver Stone. And I went on a deep dive on this Murret family, and I've been putting this one off for a while. We're going to try to avoid Oswald and his family. We're going to save that for another day. So I really just want to focus on the Murrets today. And obviously Oswald's involved because he comes and stays with them. He's raised with them. And yeah, we'll just tell you the characters. I'm going to tell you the characters involved, all of the characters, and then we're going to do them in the order that I sent to Hunley. So you've got, and a lot of this, these were people interviewed by the Warren Commission through Liebler and the other guy extensively. So there's quite a bit of material if you want to, and we could post it afterwards on Locals. There's quite a bit of Warren Commission straight up interviews of the Murret family. Not all of them, but I think the only one missing is Charles Jr., who becomes a dentist. Anyway, this is basically a white trash, other side of the tracks family, starting with the father, who is named Charles Ferdinand Dutz Murret. Charles Ferdinand Dutz Murret, a.k.a. Dutz Murret, was a former boxer, boxing manager, works on the docks, has apparently links to the mob, to the Sammy Saya and Carlos Marcello and a couple other guys. But it's really tangential related to this story. It's not like it's a major part of the story. Robert Blakey, who was the head of the House Assassinations Committee hearings in 1978, replaced another guy, and he began to steer the committee towards the mob killed Kennedy. And what he did was, that was his assignment, was to get the CIA off the hook. And Blakey wrote a book about it, and it's been discredited by Jim DiEugenio and many others, that his whole goal was to link the mob to the killing of Kennedy. And what he did do was drill down and come up with these bigger than life links to Dutz Murret and Carlos Marcello, with the middleman of Sammy Saya. Now, there are people who are in that world of boxing, and you can't, there's absolutely no evidence that Charles Murret was directly linked to Carlos Marcello. That doesn't exist. There's evidence that he was according to Murret himself, that he was a independent bookmaker and a guy who ran a book out of New Orleans. Now that is hard to believe, because indie bookies don't really exist. You know what I mean? You have to have the muscle to run an indie book. But he was obviously linked, as is everybody, to underworld in New Orleans. So the question is, how much is Dutz Murret linked to the mob? Blakey says it's unbelievable and the mob killed Kennedy. Okay. I'm saying it's tangential and a coincidence and not really relevant to the story. Okay, that's my take. And that's really the take on the major researchers in the JFK realm, who will be in Dallas when Eric and I are headlining down there for the Lorenzo Hotel JFK Lancer conference, November 17th, 18th, and 19th, which I really urge you to get tickets now because they're going to sell out. And you're going to be whining like little bitches that you didn't get your tickets. And you're going to miss out on us being the main speakers of all these maniacs who've been doing this for 35, 40 years. Well, with JFK Lancer, it's 27 years. But who's counting? So we really want you to be there. We're offering through these links discounts on the hotel, discounts on the tickets, discounts on the virtual tickets. The buffet, every single thing will be there. You can hang with us. It'll be the mother of all meetups because we've only had one meetup so far, but this will be the mother of all meetups, right, Hun?
Yep. And it is likely to be the last time you can see Dealey Plaza before they start tearing it up. I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
Timing, it does count. And there's only one 60th anniversary.
That's right. You know, the 50th was one thing, but the 60th, like Eric says, they may tear apart Dealey Plaza the day after the 60th, you know, to make sure nobody's ever going to be able to see it again. I would take your grandchildren and children. I would make it into a patriotic event and be part of this thing on November 17th. So you got almost 2 months to figure this out personally. But I don't think the tickets are going to be around that long because they already started to sell like wildfire, you know, because
except for virtual. And if you can't make it, get a virtual and you can download it. And
get a virtual, and you could just sit on your couch on your fat ass and just push the buttons. And you can just eat your own food. You don't have to come to Dallas and have incredible barbecue with me and Hunley. You don't have to come to Campese's Egyptian Lounge where Jack Ruby had his last meal with the Campese brothers the night before. You don't have to do that. You could just stay home in the middle of Indiana or Montana or Maine or wherever the hell you people live. One guy lives in Mesquite, Texas, and he says, I'm 5 minutes away. I don't know if I can make it. Another guy told us, the guy who interviewed me, the Texas editor guy, he goes, you're going to fly over my house when you're landing, so I have to make it. So I think we're going to have a big Texas contingent. We have a lot of fans in Texas, so I'm really looking forward to hooking horns with them and kicking it with our Texas fans, which are many. There are dozens that are already going. Yeah, it's really taken off really quickly. I don't know if there's going to be anybody for the other speakers who are going to be there, but it's a veritable all-star team of speakers. I mean, if you look at it, it's a greatest hits album, for Christ's sakes. From Larry Hancock on down, it's just all of the great guys that I believe. And none of the crackpots are in this thing. They must have some crackpot meter there to get rid of the cranks because there's not one crank in that lineup. Yeah, it's some solid numbers. Like Grodin, I can't wait to get with Grodin. We've heard so much about the Zapruder film, talking to the source. That'll be awesome. Right. Yeah. So we're going to talk to the mother of the Zapruder film, Robert Grodin, and probably have him interviews like we did the last time, Eric and I, long form interviews that we got our tickets for the virtual. Okay, Tony, we're in. Okay, that's it. That's not so hard. You get the virtual and then you sit back. You don't have to do anything. I mean, Jesus Christ. I bought a 3-day ticket. Let's go. It's the Woodstock. 3 days of love, peace, and bullets. Come on, let's go. This is our Woodstock for us. I mean, the people who follow this channel, this is our Woodstock. Now, keep in mind at the other channel, the other conference, you've got incredible geniuses speaking, like Alec Baldwin, one of the biggest blowhard know-it-alls who knows everything, apparently, about the JFK assassination. He knows how to secretly shoot someone. I mean, he knows that he's bringing his sidekick. His sidekick is the fat meathead, Rob Reiner, who apparently people are astounded that he knows everything about the JFK assassination. Who knew? that meathead was one of the world's leading experts. Imagine you go to the show and you go, I want to see Cyril Wecht. I want to see wait a second, what is Rob Reiner doing up there? What the hell is this? And now he's followed by who? Alec Baldwin. What the hell kind of show is this? Anyway, that's what's going on in Pittsburgh. So don't go to Pittsburgh. That's all I can tell you. That's going to be a shit show down there. But come to the JFK Lancer, right, Eric?
Totally agree. All right, so let's get on this story. I want to find out.
Let's get on this. Let me give you the people because you don't know anything. All right, so there's Charles Dutz Murret, who's the dad. Okay. Then there's Lillian. I'm going to go over these people individual. There's Lillian Murret, whose name is Lillian Claverie, French-German extraction. She is the sister of Marguerite Oswald, a.k.a.
I think that might be her on the left, but I can't be certain.
It's not. These are two other people, yeah. There's plenty of pictures of Marguerite Oswald. There's really nothing of Lillian, unfortunately, and there's really nothing of Dutz Murret. And believe me, I've looked, but it doesn't really matter because there's pictures of the kids. It's not really that relevant. Dutz Murret, like I said, is a boxing promoter on a low-level thing, had a brief boxing career, blah, blah, blah. He's the father of this household, and he will be the guy who lives at 757 French Street, which is the house. Now, of the children, let me just go over the children, because we're going to go over them individually, and you can see how odd this story is of this white trash family in New Orleans. So you've got Charles Murret Jr. Now, he was in the Air Force. He was a dentist in the Air Force. He comes out of the Air Force and becomes a dentist. And I think he's the only guy that I've never found anything bizarre about. I think you got a picture of Charles Murret. All of these family members live to be 95 years old. Every single one of them died a week ago. So these are not people who didn't live recently. There's, I don't know if you have the color photo of Charles.
I have Eugene, but not Charles.
You should have Charles. Long face, long hound dog face.
All right. Well, I'll look and keep talking.
Okay. So do you have Lillian? You don't have Lillian. Do you have Marilyn?
Well, I have Lillian and Marilyn in that one shot with Oswald. And I tried to blow it up as best as possible.
Okay. So what do you have here? Okay. So this is on the left is Marilyn Dorothea Murret. She is the sister of Joyce and the sister of Charles and Eugene and John. That is the photo of Lillian Murret. This is in 1950s, the mother right there, with Lee Harvey Oswald on the right. This is 1956, around Mardi Gras time. As I said, he is passed back and forth by his mother, who asks her sister, in this case Lillian, to raise him. This is because her husband drops dead of a heart attack. Her first husband leaves her. The second husband dies of a heart attack, and the two of them, the two husbands, leave her, so she has no husbands. So Oswald, because he's the youngest, there's two older brothers. There's Robert, and then there's John Pick, who comes from the first marriage. John Edward Pick is a half brother to Robert and Lee, if you could follow that at home. Robert and Lee come from Lee Oswald, the second husband of Marguerite Claverie Oswald, Pick Oswald. There's a couple of hyphens in there. But nevertheless, because of financial reasons, Marguerite gives her sister Lillian Lee to raise. And he is taken at, the other two are in an orphanage. And it's a special orphanage. It's an orphanage for when you have one parent. There's like an orphanage in Louisiana that is a one-parent orphanage. I don't know why that exists, but it apparently exists. So Lee is ostensibly a baby that's so gorgeous that when Lillian would wheel him down Canal Street, this baby is so cute that all the women would stop and just fell over him. Look at his face. I mean, this baby was so outgoing and so cute that everybody loved baby Lee, the guy you're seeing right there. Now, that being said, he was apparently very outgoing. He was the sweetest baby you ever wanted to see. And people really embraced him. They really loved him. There he is. There he is rolling around the dirt. And
his brother thinks that was at Lillian's, according to the book.
It probably is, because that's the time frame that he's at Lillian's. Okay, so there's Lillian, There's Marilyn. There's Joyce. Now, Joyce is going to come into play in the story. Marilyn is going to come into play. John's going to come into play. And Eugene is going to come into play. So here it is. Where'd you get that from? That's the one I sent you. There he is. He literally just died 2 years ago. That's
they all died. A few of them died like within the past 4 years.
I know. It just seems like COVID finished them off because they were all like 95 years old.
They're really old.
So anyway, that's Charles Jr. That's the one who becomes the dentist. I think in either Beaumont or somewhere in Louisiana, but not in New Orleans. He moves outside of New Orleans. And I never really found anything sketchy about him.
It seems like he retired, like did a dentist thing, retired, and nothing there.
That's what I've always gotten out of it. In fact, he doesn't even testify for the Warren Commission. I don't think he testifies. The others do. Joyce doesn't, but Marilyn testifies at length. Lillian at length. Even Dutz at some length at the Warren Commission, and John Boogie. Maybe we could start with John Boogie. John Boogie, we'll start with him. John Boogie is very close. It's John Boogie Murret. You should have a tall, lanky.
I'm working on it.
Oh, okay. I don't know what you have over there. I thought you had all these, but anyway. So there's a shot. This is my favorite Murret. Okay, this Murret is the closest to Lee, and this Murret is playing for a team in this particular photo, 1952,
I think it said.
Right, 1952, 53 is when he graduated. So this is Aloysius, and he was on a team called La Rocca, and La Rocca was sponsored by Dr. Henry La Rocca, so they were called La Rocca. He put up all the money, bought the uniforms and everything else. So the thing about John Boogie Murret that I love is he teaches Lee Harvey Oswald how to play baseball. Gives him one of his gloves. The problem with Lee was he didn't have any money, and they had 5 kids in the Murret family, so they didn't really have money to spend extra on Lee's childhood, Eric, if you know what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. So Lee wanted to play baseball in the worst way, but look what you need. You need a uniform, you need a bat, you need cleats, you need a glove, you need a ball. It's a lot of stuff, just to play. So anyway, so John here, Boogie, is a fantastic baseball player. One of the best baseball players in the country. And in fact, he ends up in the 1953 Amateur Baseball Association 9th Annual Championship. It's a national championship in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. He's a center fielder, gets a couple of hits. They win the game. They're taken by a motorcycle escort to New Orleans by motorcycle escort in this motorcade to meet with Mayor de Lesseps Morrison, who gives him the same key to the city that is over my left shoulder, Eric. This guy right here, Boogie, gets the key to the city from the mayor of New Orleans in 1953. And I always like that about Boogie. Now, Boogie goes on to play but never makes it to the bigs, the St. Louis Cardinals minor league operations. Nobody knows this. In fact, in Priscilla McMillan's book about Marina and Lee, she mistakenly says he became a pro basketball player. Just one of the no, I swear to God, one of the many mistakes by Priscilla McMillan, CIA author of Marina and Lee, later to become replaced by Judith Vary Baker in Me and Lee, I think, or whatever her name of her book was, a similar style to Priscilla McMillan's.
Yeah, that's a bit of an error.
Right. So anyway, so John, right here, Boogie teaches or attempts to teach Lee Harvey Oswald how to drive, and he takes his dad's car, or his car rather, and it didn't have a clutch; it was just a regular automatic, and a big boat apparently, and took him around a parking lot at night trying to teach him how to drive, and he had problems, as a lot of people do, parallel parking in reverse at night on a street and. Sure. Blah, blah. Yeah, I mean, blah, blah, blah. But they were close. They were close. Not as close as Marilyn and Lee. And we're going to get into that in a second. But Joyce, just to get Joyce out of the way, Joyce is the oldest sister. Now, when Lee gets arrested for getting into a fight with Carlos Bringuier in New Orleans for passing out pro-Castro leaflets, he's arrested and he's brought in. And he's grilled by Agent Quigley, and he's brought into jail. he calls up the house. He calls up the Murret house, and the only one there is Joyce. And Joyce, he asked Joyce to get him bail money to get him out of New Orleans jail where he's been arrested. And Joyce says, well, what did you do? And he says, I was arrested passing out flyers, and it's not a big deal, but I need to have somebody bail me out. So she contacts Emile Bruneau. Now, Emile Bruneau will later have a famous son, Emile Bruneau Jr. out of New Orleans, who will be I think the head of the boxing commission. I don't know if this is the father. This looks like the father, Emile Bruneau Sr. And apparently he's a relation to her father, Dutz Murret, through the boxing world, right? But this guy, the older guy, is an associate of Nofio Pecora, who really is the gang leader, the mob leader of New Orleans below Marcello. He's the chief Marcello lieutenant. But everybody in the boxing business is. So this is not unusual, people. It doesn't mean they killed Kennedy because there's mobsters in the boxing profession. But she gets this Lieutenant Emilio Bruneau to put up the bail money for Lee Harvey Oswald and get him out of jail. And he will then go to court. He will then sit on the black side of the court. When he goes to court, he will then do TV interviews like every lone assassin does. They do TV interviews before, they do the crime. All of this stuff, the Murret family, when they're grilled about Oswald by the Warren Commission, every single one of them, the only one who has a slightly bad word about him, it's not even that bad, is Dutz himself, the old man, who meets him at the bus station. Keep in mind, he had defected to the Soviet Union. He came back. Just to give you the backstory, he's going to New Orleans in April of 1963, and he calls up his aunt, Lillian, and says, can I stay with you while I'm looking for work in New Orleans? So she's overjoyed. She says, I didn't even know you were back from the Soviet Union. And she says, of course you can. So he is picked up at the bus station by Dutz. They bring his bags over a couple of days later. I put him in a locker, I think. And Dutz says, oh, well, whatever. What are you going to do? His kid's got to find some work. He's family. He's treated as family, Eric, by them, by this adopted family, because he was, so now he's in his early 20s. It's not like he's 49 years old. I mean, they had him when he was at Beauregard High School at 15. He was living with them. You know what I mean? So this is not unusual. Plus, it's a big family. Plus, it's got boys in it. You know what I'm saying? It's like a brood. It's one more on the plate. Doesn't really matter.
Sure.
So he comes over, and indeed, he begins to look for work. And he lands a job at O'Reilly's coffee factory. By the way, I got the coffee today. It's delicious.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I just thought I'd throw that in there. But he gets a job at O'Reilly's coffee factory, and his job is to grease, with a grease gun, the gears that grind up the beans that come in from Central America. And I mean, these are gigantic machines. Something out of
industrial, sure,
like out of Willy Wonka, at a Willy Wonka level machines. So he's greasing those machines. Now it turns out O'Reilly's is a cover job for many intelligence people. It's a cover job for a lot of them who work there with him. The place itself is owned by a fierce anti-communist who works with the intelligence people, who works with
NASA. Came through there, right? A lot of NASA came out of there.
Well, no, these people graduate from there and go to NASA.
Okay,
in Alabama, and
right.
they go to Alabama, where NASA in northern Alabama is a big Huntsville, and there's stuff, statues like they were telling us in Montgomery. There are statues there for ex-Operation Paperclip types.
Heroes. Yeah,
heroes of the blues. So anyway, so he goes to work for O'Reilly, and he gets an apartment. And who shows up? As per what was arranged, his wife is driven by Ruth Payne and the baby, and they show up. But in the meantime, he's starting to work and get this apartment and put his life together, as he had asked the Murrets to let him do. He's doing what he came to New Orleans to do, which is to reestablish himself. He checks in with unemployment. He eventually finds the job at O'Reilly's coffee place. And John Murret was very helpful in helping him try to get a job. because he's the closest to the Murrets among the boys. So he begins to go to work there. He gets an apartment. Ruth Payne is, of course, not happy. She's trying to incite a feud between him and Marina, and it's just not happening. He goes and shows her New Orleans at night, and she is overjoyed by the bright lights of New Orleans. Being a Soviet citizen, Eric, she is in love with the city of New Orleans. He takes her to Lake Pontchartrain. They go crabbing. She ribs him, saying, "We could have bought this fish downtown and been done with this already," and he's stopping her from smoking, and they take Marilyn crabbing with them. I've never gone crabbing, but I think it's multiple nets in a body of water, and you just pull in the nets occasionally. And
crab pots. It's pots, but yeah.
I mean, how do you get the crabs? You just throw the nets.
Well, they have pots, and there's like fish guts on there, and then you just pull up the pots that they jump into.
All right. Well, this is what he's doing with his wife and Marilyn Dorothea Murret will tell the Warren Commission only good things about him. And I'm going to explain why I think that happened, because she is enamored with him. She is like, in that photo that you showed, he's about 16 and she's about 35 already in that photo, Eric. And she was a beautiful woman. And we're going to get into her background in a little bit there. That's the upper left. Yeah, she's like 35 there in that photo, right? But she was gorgeous, like 5'11", thin. Could have been a model type. I know a lot of people don't believe that when they look at these photos, but from what the description of other people have told me and read about, she was quite a looker. Now,
great smile.
Yeah. And she recently just passed away like 2 minutes ago. So, I mean, these people had some sort of genetic stuff, just like Ruth Payne, where they live forever. So Joyce Murret bails him out. That's just before she died. That's Marilyn, again, down in New Orleans. So, I mean,
like 91 or 2.
Yeah. I mean, I hope I look that good at 91, 92. But anyway, so the next person is Charles. We can get into Eugene last. Why don't we do Marilyn now, as long as we're on this subject with Marilyn? So you say to yourself, well, who is Marilyn? Like, what's the deal with Marilyn? So she's a school teacher. She went to 48 High School, and then it gets a little strange. And I mean a little strange. You say, well, how strange could it get? Well, I don't know. It depends. She gets a BA from Tulane, right, to be a teacher. She becomes a teacher. And she begins to teach in high schools in New Orleans. She teaches science, right? And you just go, all right, well, that sounds pretty good. She tells the Warren Commission that Lee was always a perfect gentleman. Even as a teenager, he opened doors for women. He would, in a restaurant, unconsciously would get up and fix this, pull the seat out for a woman, not just his girlfriend. He did this for any woman. He was the most refined, this is her words, a refined, well-mannered boy who wanted to play sports in the worst way. And she also said that he would read an encyclopedia like other people read a novel, that he was the smartest kid she ever met. His IQ, this is from his own cousin. This is his own cousin who knows him, who is a teacher. She
I'm confused. I thought Riley said that he was a rube that couldn't put two words together.
Right. So his IQ is off the charts. He would read nonstop. He was super quiet, super introverted, super polite. And he would get into fights because, the bully boys didn't really like that type, of guy who walked around erect, who was a proud kid, who was an intellectual kid, who was a quiet, introverted kid. That type usually gets their ass beaten in high school, which is what happened to him at Beauregard. But again, as we pointed out with Robert Oswald, his brother, Robert had his back. So he did have the brother, but not in New Orleans. That was in Texas. The brother will eventually get out of the orphanage and also go to school in New Orleans. And then he went to New York on his own with her when they moved in with John Pick's family in the Bronx, as we covered in the previous episode. So John Pick is stationed in the Air Force in Japan. And you say, well, that's interesting. Well, he's in Japan. I guess it's after World War II. So Oswald defects and he goes to the Soviet Union. And who turns up in Japan with John Edward Pick. Marilyn Murret turns up in Japan. And
Okay.
no, just follow this, because this is going to get, now we're going to get into something here. So she says, have you heard about Lee? And he says, no. And she said, my wife has. Oh, you heard from Lee? And he says, no, my wife has. So she claims to the Warren Commission that John Edward Pick's wife told him that Lee Harvey Oswald had defected to Moscow. This is Pick, or?
Yeah, it's the best I could do on Picks for now.
Okay. So Pick is the half brother. So he talks to Marilyn Murret, and Murret tells the Warren Commission that they found out about it, the Picks, through Stars and Stripes. Unfortunately, that's not true, because the Stars and Stripes didn't print it till a year later. So Murret did not find out about it. How did she find out about it? That's what we're going to get into right now. How did she know that Oswald was in Moscow? Well, he defected, right? So, okay, that's in the paper, So the original paper, but this is a little bit before. So she goes to Tulane and gets a degree at Tulane, right? So the Warren Commission starts asking her questions about her schooling, and she says that she went to Tulane. I don't know if I have the actual thing here. I just wanted to tell you the background of this woman in teaching and traveling, because it becomes like a situation where she's both teaching and traveling, Eric. And
sounds like a future relative we discussed.
No, this is going to have some real overlaps to what we discussed, because I just want to tell you her schooling is a little bizarre, right? So she goes to this school, Fortier, and the guy says, where is it? And she says it's in New Orleans, right? And then she teaches at a place called Junior University of New Orleans, which apparently she's having trouble getting paid from. And she then explains to the Warren Commission in some detail, like I said, how well-mannered Lee Harvey Oswald is. And she begins to explain her background, which I just want to get into in terms of schooling, if I can find this little thing. Oh, yeah, here it is. Here's a little piece I was trying to find. It was buried in here. I went to John Dilbert Elementary School and John McDonough High School. This is her upbringing. This is her education. And Liebler, who is the Warren Commission lawyer, says to her, they are both located here in the city of New Orleans. Is that correct? And she says, yes, sir. And then, now here's where it gets crazy. Ready for this? She says, you went to school there, and where else? She goes, well, and Loyola University, okay? And LSU at Baton Rouge, and Tulane, and a summer at Duke, and the University of California, and the Sorbonne in Paris, and the University of, shut up, you will shut up and listen, Hunley, and the University of Madrid, and St. Louis University. Okay, let me repeat this. It's so insane. We were just reading this last night, laughing. Okay, they're both located in the city of New Orleans, right? This is her high schools, Okay, yes, sir. And she adds, without any additional questioning, and Loyola University, which is this other university next to Tulane, and LSU at Baton Rouge, and Tulane, and a summer at Duke in North Carolina, and the University of Southern California out here, and the Sorbonne in Paris, and the University of Madrid, and St. Louis University. He interrupts her now, Liebler. He interrupts her because he just goes, he doesn't know where this is going as a lawyer. So he interrupts her and says, what degrees do you hold from these schools, which you have mentioned? Miss Murret, I just have a BA from Tulane. Okay, I just have a BA, and the others were educational courses. Instead of going to one school, I just went to various ones. Now think about what I just said. This is her sworn testimony to the Warren Commission. I just have a BA. The others were educational courses. Instead of going to one school, I just went to various ones. So Liebler sees this going off the rails, and he says, what school gave you your BA? And she says, Tulane. And he goes, Tulane University? And she says, yes. And he says, I understand that you are a teacher. Is that correct? Yes. Are you presently teaching? Yes. Where? Okay, I'm teaching at Fortier, which is a high school in New Orleans. And now it's closed, but I think it closed 2005. Inner city high school, public school. Have you taught at Junior University of New Orleans? Yes, unfortunately. When did you teach? When she said, unfortunately, when did you teach there? September through December, but he didn't pay us. He paid the first check. He's out of business at the moment. He didn't pay the last two, but he recently paid me for the November check, and he still owes me for December. This is the craziest answer I've ever heard to a question of where you're teaching, okay? And he says, Lieber, this is the person who is running Junior University of New Orleans. She goes, yes, it's closed down now, but he still has the one across the river. He had two, one on one side, one on the other. And Lieber says, two so-called universities? She goes, yes, sir. But the one on the St. Charles side is closed, and the one across the river is still operating. So he doesn't know where this is going, Lieber, and he's getting very nervous because this is crazy stuff that's going off the rails. So he begins to change subject matters, and she begins to get into, how great a child Lee Harvey Oswald was. And she's not making this up because Lillian, in her testimony, basically says the same thing. So when I said she meets him in Japan, I just want to get into that because this is about meeting John Pick in Japan and finding out that Oswald is in the Soviet Union. Liebel says, where was John living at the time? This is John Edward Pick, the half-brother. Murret says, in Japan. You were in Japan at that time? She goes, yes. What were you doing in Japan? This is going to get crazy. So strap yourself in, folks. You were in Japan at the time? Yes. What were you doing in Japan? I taught school over there. In an English-speaking school? Yes. Did John tell you that Lee had gone to Russia? He didn't tell me. His wife told me. So I didn't bring the subject up with John. I mean, it was in Stars and Stripes, which later is untrue. And then it goes on. It says, she's asked, do you speak Russian? And she says, no, I studied French and Spanish, but was hopeless. So she speaks absolutely zero foreign languages. She establishes here. And then he asked her the following question, which I can only I had to write this down. It's one of the greatest answers of all time. And we'll get into this in a second. And I know you're going to be excited about this, Hunley, because she says, I was out of the country at the time. And she continues to go out of the country. In the summer of '63, in July and August, she goes to Mexico and Central America, Nicaragua, and Panama. And he says, how did you do that? This is on a teacher's salary, by the way. It's all on teacher's salary. And he says, how did you do that? She says, well, I went on buses and station wagons. And he goes, do you own a station wagon? She goes, no. And she says, well, how did you go? He says, I went public transportation. Some of these answers are so crazy that Liebler realizes that he's got to get off the subject. And this is one of them. How long were you out of the U.S. and where did you go and what did you do? It's a pretty good question. She says she was out of the country. Okay, ready? You ready? This is great. Okay, quote, 3.5 years, Eric. And I started out on my way. And of course, I went to Hong Kong, the Philippines, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, which was not part of Malaysia at the time. It was Malaya. And straight around, just following the bottom, I went all through Beirut, then the Holy Land, then Egypt, Cyprus. And after that, I went all through Europe and back. Okay? No, you will shut up and listen because I'm going to repeat this because it's going to explain quite a bit. 3.5 years, she was out of the country. Okay, 3.5 years on a teacher's salary, right? And I started out on my way and went to Hong Kong, the Philippines, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, which was not part of Malaysia at the time, which was Malaya, she points out, and straight around just following the bottom of the earth. I went all through Beirut, Eric, the Holy Land, Eric, Egypt, Cyprus, and also all through Europe until I came back. Now, you try to explain to me how this woman is able to do that on a teacher's salary. So Liebler says to her, did you teach at any time during that? And she said, I taught in Australia and New Zealand. Okay. No, he says, did you work during the time you were gone on this trip, Eric? Did you work? This is a white trash family on the other side of the tracks whose father is essentially a bookmaker and a longshoreman. Okay? Liebler, did you work during the time you were gone on this trip? Miss Murret. This is Marilyn Dorothea Murret. I worked in Australia and New Zealand and Japan. As a teacher? As a teacher, yes. Did you teach in Australia's schools or interrupted? Yes. Did you have any trouble with the teacher certification problems? Or don't they have that problem in those places? Miss Murret. Well, it depends what your field is. I was teaching science, which is the same. They have a teacher's college, which is 2 years. And if anything, you would have more than they have. You were a science teacher? Yes. Where were you when you heard about the assassination? At Juneau in school. So he completely changes the subject. That's why I was reading that, because Liebler all of a sudden realized this is going into the shitter and it's going to go into a dark place because Miss Murret is obviously an intelligence operative. And similar to Obama's mother, who had the same cover and many others that we pointed out, she traveled around the globe as an intelligence officer with the cover of being a teacher. And if you want to follow the same story with Dunham, Obama's mother, you can follow that on our episode of CIA and the Family. And that's why I'm going into detail with this Murret thing. And Murret doesn't have an explanation for this. She has
Ruth Payne too did that.
Ruth Payne did too. And if you look at the in the obituary, which I sent you of Marilyn Murret, it said that she started to study ballet and ended up going to the ballet in St. Petersburg, Russia, Eric. If you read that detail, which is not in the Warren Commission testimony, it's in her obituary. And in her obituary, which we'll post on Locals after the show, it said there was a period of time, again, this would be years later, that she worked not as a stewardess, but in some capacity for Braniff Airlines, which is a complete lie, because all of this travel is before 1964 when the Warren Commission is being convened. And she would have said, I worked for Braniff Airlines. She emphatically says, I'm a teacher repeatedly in the sworn testimony.
Wow.
That's right. Wow. So this woman, the reason she knows about Oswald, the reason she knows about John Pick in Japan is she's traveling around the world. And I believe the reason that she gives such a glowing review of, she says repeatedly, he could not have done this. This is not who he was. He could not have committed this crime. He didn't have a violent bone in his body. He never would have done this. He loved the country. He loved she goes overboard in her testimony because I believe that she was trying to help out a fellow intelligence officer who was a family member. And that's my opinion. I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, he's a peer.
And a family member.
Yeah, both.
And a family member.
Yeah.
She's the only one that will not throw him under the bus. And she goes out of her way repeatedly. Now, she can't save herself. They know she's an intelligence operative. Dulles knows. He's sitting right next to Liebler during this interrogation or whatever, this interview of Marilyn Murret.
I wish I could have seen that because Dulles is probably going like, move it along.
Move it along. Oh, no. There's times when they went off the record, Eric. I mean, going off the record in the Warren Commission, they do it for a reason. Marilyn Murret was an intelligence officer for the United States government. She was in the same family as Lee Harvey Oswald and traveled the earth filing reports, not having any means of economic support all around the earth for 3.5 years, just like Obama's mother did. Exactly the same story.
Yeah, if it works.
In fact, he asks her where she is in the summer of 1963, because when she comes back, this is way after the 3.5 years. This is way after the 3.5 years. She leaves in July and all of August, 2 entire months to go to Mexico, Panama, Central America by bus and station wagon. I don't know what the station wagon meant, but she also says, not kind of weirdly, that when she was with Marina, she didn't speak a word of English. And seconds after the assassination, she sees her on TV speaking really good English. You know, during the interview process that she submitted to, she was speaking broken English. But in September and August, when she was with her, not one word between them. She said it was an incredible, exhaustive struggle to communicate to Marina because she didn't speak one word of English. Now, a lot of people fake that, you know, for intelligence purposes. Marina was obviously an intelligence operative as well. So she may have done this can't speak English thing as part of her cover to begin with. And then we get into the whole Ruth Payne thing where she picks her up and takes her back, you know, to Dallas, you know. But so far, we've got Dutz Murret, we've got John Boogie Murret, we've got Lillian Murret, who is a Claverie, the sister of Marguerite Oswald. And Marguerite is hell on wheels, by the way. Everybody in that family says that she was very difficult to deal with. She was very opinionated, very stubborn, really a tough broad. And she had to be because she had 2 dead husbands. You know what I mean? So she had to raise 3 boys. So I cut her some slack, you know.
All right. So we have, I guess, Eugene coming up.
Oh, Eugene is good. Eugene is a good one. Eugene, I don't even know where to start with Eugene because we're going to get in a little bit to our old friend Robert Fitzpatrick. If you remember Robert Fitzpatrick, he will be at the Spring Hill College in Mobile, Alabama. I was going to go up there when we were in Montgomery, but it's just too far and we didn't have time. I had a source years ago inside the school. This is a Jesuit college, by the way, Spring Hill. And it's got a school of Jesuits in there within the school. It's boys and girls now. You know, not that many, 1,300 students or whatever it is. Beautiful school. It's been around since the 1800s. But it's a Jesuit, and the Jesuits have a deep, deep state connection to the CIA. This is our old friend Robert Fitzpatrick, who went to school there. He'll turn out to be a homosexual years later. He will be the father of Michael Fitzpatrick, who will become the lead singer of Fritz and the Tantrums, in case anybody knows that band. They live here in Silver Lake. Robert Fitzpatrick will be the youngest city councilman in Baltimore history. He will become the head of Euro Disney. There's Michael, Fritz and the Tantrums. Michael Fitzpatrick's father, Robert Fitzpatrick's job was to infiltrate the art world for the CIA, which is what he did. He became the head of the Chicago Institute of Art in Chicago. He became the head of Euro Disney. He became all these obscure, unrelated jobs that have no connection. He became the head of Johns Hopkins University. He became the head of. He became the head of the city council in Baltimore. This is a guy who's not even an American, by the way. He was given American citizenship by the CIA when he became the youngest city councilman in Baltimore history. But the story's not about him, but it's a little bit about him because he is at Spring Hill College. Now, Spring Hill College is where Eugene Murret goes to school. Eugene writes a letter to Lee Harvey Oswald, July 12, 1963. This is the summer of the year of the assassination. Would you mind coming to the school to speak to the students, the Jesuits specifically, because there's only about 24 of them that are there in attendance. It's not the whole school. It's the Jesuits who are on a fast track to intelligence work. So he's invited in this letter to come and speak at the school. He writes on the Soviet Union, on life in the Soviet Union. So Dutz Murret, Lillian Murret, Marina Oswald, Lee Harvey Oswald, and the children get into Dutz Murret's car and drive from New Orleans to Mobile, Alabama. They stay in a motel overnight nearby, and the hotel's no longer there. But they go to the campus, and they just hang out outside because it's a male-only, student-only thing. So Marina is outside on the grounds with the Murrets, and she's befriended by that guy, Robert Fitzpatrick, and he begins to talk to her about opera records and his love of opera, and becomes a pen pal to Marina Oswald, signing his name Boris Badvanovich as a joke in the letters to her. He is almost placed in as a handler to Marina Oswald while she's in New Orleans. This guy gets in her good graces and becomes a pen pal, and they mail each other albums. So she meets him at Spring Hill College. Nobody knows this. This is all really in my weeds. She becomes beholden to Robert Fitzpatrick. Inside the college, Lee begins to present his trip to the Soviet Union, explains to them how it functions, how it works, how he doesn't like it, how it blows in the Soviet Union, that he doesn't like communism. This is despite what everyone says, that he was an avowed Marxist. It's a crock of shit. He goes and tells these students what he felt. And we know this because the FBI interviews every one of the students and writes down what he spoke about. In the 201 statements by the FBI, they interview each and every student, and it's generally the same thing. Denunciation of the Soviet Union, communism doesn't work. Maybe there's a different system, but it ain't that one, according to him. Now, there's another guy who's going to speak there a week later. Maybe Eric knows him. He will be invited to speak a week later, I think, in late July or August, having no connection to Lee Harvey Oswald. He's just a random guy who comes and speaks there.
Well, let's see. I think I have a video clip. Is this the one?
Let's see.
But some have noted the coincidence of an appearance on campus weeks earlier by New Orleans businessman Clay Shaw, the only person ever tried for Kennedy's murder, who attended an international relations forum.
But
Okay,
people that are putting together all these dots found that strange that
Go ahead. No, she says dots a couple of times. I like to hear that. Go ahead.
he was here maybe the month before. It may not mean anything, but as you know, there's lots of strange little dots.
Tomorrow,
Dude, bravo. I love this woman. Bravo. So she knows there's dots. She's trying to connect them. He's there a couple of weeks before. Clay Shaw, why wouldn't he be there right before Oswald? He's an opening act. But in May, they had a real big headline in May of that year, the same room, was Joan Baez. So Joan Baez gives a show there, and then Clay Shaw, then Lee Harvey Oswald. You can't make this stuff up, folks. I'm telling you right now. This is the craziest story I've ever done, because Joan Baez. Keep in mind, this is 1963, Blowing in the Wind. Joan Baez. She's still with Bob Dylan at this point. So maybe Dylan would have played there next after Oswald. We don't know. Anyway, so Oswald gives this speech, and it becomes a Q&A, and he starts talking about life in the Soviet Union and what it's like and what would happen there. So Eugene already has a BA, and he's got a law degree, and I think he went to Tulane also, but he's got a law degree, and he was 4F or 1A, couldn't get in the Army, did a couple of years, comes out and goes right to this thing to become a priest. So he's got a law degree, right? And he's got a BA. Okay. Why would you now want to become a priest? Because I will say to you, sir, it's not about being a priest. It's about intelligence work and the conduit that the Jesuits have always had with the CIA since the beginning, and intelligence work going back decades. And that's why Eugene Murret is at Spring Hill College. He doesn't need a degree. He's already got a law degree, my friends. So you say, well, what could he do after this? Well, he graduates from Spring Hill, and he goes to work. For a guy. He's got in 1964, he gets an MA, a Master of Arts from there. He's got a JD from Loyola in 1959 and a BA from Loyola in 1954. So that's his background. Pretty clean, unlike his sisters. This is a pretty clean background in terms of educational resumes, right? So he goes to work, gets a job, because guys get jobs all the time. He's the executive counsel to the governor of Louisiana. That's his first job, right? He gets a job with this guy, Governor John McKeithen, who was governor of Louisiana. A lot of people know him. I think afterwards, there was a governor who had some problems with the law. And before him, I think, was a singing governor before him. So this guy, John McKeithen, the governor, hires hires Eugene Murret to be an executive counsel. Okay, that's weird, which he works for from 1969 to 1971. Now, in that time, McKeithen is involved in a scandal, and McKeithen is caught sending payments through this guy, Murret, to the Ku Klux Klan. Now, he's not sending it to the Klan because he loves them. He's buying peace from the Klan. In other words, he's paying off the Klan to not start trouble. And which is, it could be, well-intentioned. And the Klan takes the money, they divide it up. It's $10,000 chunks. And it's being hand-delivered by Murret, according to FOIA documents that have recently come out. And I mean recently. So this story has a lot of legs in terms of today. So he then, after he's doing this, I think it was revealed in Life magazine, actually, the distribution of the money to the Klan. I think it became a scandal for McKeithen. And he will be replaced by another corrupt governor of Louisiana. But what's his name? Murret becomes the judicial administrator to the Supreme Court of the state of Louisiana. That's his next job. Now, he's just gotten out of college. The priesthood is gone. The priesthood is a phony thing. He's now the judicial administrator to the entire Supreme Court. I know he's showing a shot.
Well, that's where he is in front of the Supreme Court. That's literally the shot. I don't have any.
Yeah. So he now becomes the administrator, right? So you go, well, what kind of a job is that? Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's a deep state job, my friends. This is a job where this guy has to be so trusted to be the right-hand man of the governor of Louisiana, one of the most corrupt states in the union, and then to be the administrator to the Supreme Court of the state. You have to be with a lot of friends. Let me put it that way. You have to have a lot of friends. And keep in mind, this is a white trash, other side of the tracks family with a boxing promoter, bookie father, and a non-working mother. Okay, just keep in mind who this family is. His next job is circuit executive to the U.S. Court of Appeals, the 10th Circuit in Denver. Okay. I mean, now he's working for the United States government out of Denver for the Court of Appeals, the 10th Circuit. That's from 1987, 1994. Okay. When he's in New Orleans, you know what his address is? He lives at 7055 Hunley, General Haig Street in New Orleans. General Haig. Does that ring a bell? General Alexander Haig. Yes.
Yes, I know the name.
I am in charge here is the name of the street he lives on. He lives on Alexander Haig Street. You can't be deeper state than that. Alexander Haig famously saying, "I'm in charge here," when Reagan was shot, even though there were laws in effect that went to the vice president of the United States. Alexander Haig famously gave a press conference when Reagan was shot and in surgery that he was in charge of the United States of America. I don't know if anybody remembers that. I happen to recall it because it was so freaking odd. Okay, so he lives on General Haig Street. You could draw your own conclusions from that. So you just go, well, what could he do after this? He's done so much, Murret, right? Well, he's not done. He's not done. There is a war in Bosnia, Eric. I don't know if you remember the Bosnian War with the Serbs. That's right. With the Serbs and the Croats, and the Serbs are over here and the Croats are over here and Milosevic. And it was a war. It could have been a wag the dog war. Nobody's really sure what happens. Well, the Serbs kind of lose that war. And the Serbs are backed by the Russians. A lot of Russians volunteered to fight on behalf of the Serbs. And we launched a lot of Patriot missiles in there. It got really crazy. So when the dust settled, when the war was over, they had, I want to say, a judicial system, right? And the judicial system had this is kind of like Iraq. The judicial system had about 1,500 judges. And those 1,500 judges had to be vetted. And within the 1,500, they got rid of most of them. They kept
tribunals or
not tribunals. They just said you got to go. You got to go. Not tribunals. They didn't do anything. They didn't do anything. They're just vetting the judges because they want to take over There's documents on this from the East-West Institute. They want to take over the entire judicial system of Bosnia, Eric. They want to get rid of the judges so we can run their judicial system based on our system. And they put in literally a system to control their judicial system to this day. And I'm going to get into that in a second, because this is all part of the Dayton Accords. I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember the Dayton Accords. That may be a separate episode in Clinton's time. The Dayton Accords is the peace treaty to end the Bosnian War. And there's a lot of rules in there that may be considered quite draconian. So they take over the entire judicial system of the nation Bosnia, okay, which is now split to Herzegovina and Bosnia. Whatever's left of it, we take it over. And because our deep state takes it over, we have to have the deep state in charge of the vetting of these judges and everyone else, because we're taking it over. Out of the barrel comes Eugene Murret, 1994. He's put in charge of Bosnia, my friends. This is the first cousin of Lee Harvey Oswald, a lone nut who had no friends, no family, couldn't read, according to Bill O'Reilly. His first cousin is put in charge of Bosnia. So he now goes over to Bosnia and begins getting rid of judges that are not loyal to the United States of America, Eric. And we begin to put in our own judges to this day. Now, how do we do this? There's a group called the East-West Institute. It's sometimes referred to as the East-West Management Institute or the East-West Institute. It's funded by USAID. USAID is a CIA front. The money that goes to them is able to install new court people because of the money that is offered to it through USAID. East-West Management also did this to the courts in socialist Albania. They got rid of the courts there in Albania, and they were able to do the same thing. How do we know this? Because of Tom Fitton and Judicial Watch. Through the FOIA that Fitton was able to get, we now know that all of this money came from USAID through a man who implemented the money. Oh, George Soros. Oh, third base. Now we got George Soros in this story. But it goes further than that. There was a guy named David Samuel Gottsman. David Samuel Gottsman was the American paper magnate from the early 1900s. He was the Rockefeller of pulp paper, made billions of dollars in paper, right? He was born in Hungary in 1884, and he created something called the Chase Morgan Bank. First, he created the Central Bank in New York, okay? That morphed into the Chase JP Morgan Bank that we have today. That's who Gottsman is. Gottsman also creates the East-West Institute. And the East-West Institute is what we're talking about. David Samuel Gottsman was the first George Soros in American politics. Also from Hungary, also of similar background to later George Soros. He is the original George Soros, and nobody knows about this guy. And that's why I wanted to do the show. Because Murret, when he goes over there, is now receiving money through Soros, but it originally came through East-West Management Institute, which is run by the Gottsman family and their descendants. Okay, just so people know this. Within this organization is the Office of the High Representative. That is the legal umbrella over the court system of Bosnia. This is what he's put in charge of. Right? This is what Eugene Murret, the cousin of Lee Harvey Oswald, is put in charge of the Office of the High Representative. Now that's in 2003, Eric, right? It's still in power today. It's still ruling. It's kind of like there's a control on paper from the Dayton Accords of running Bosnia that we've not relented yet. It's not a free country. We control it through this Office of High Representative, which is a crazy Orwellian name, right? So they're running this thing, and there's a guy who runs afoul of it recently named Milorad Dodik. Now, Milorad Dodik is shown here, is the leader of Bosnia. He was indicted 2 weeks ago for crimes of not paying any homage or listening to his overlords, the United States and the Office of High Representation, which is the overlords. He has become a partner with Orban in Hungary that have turned areas with Orban and are now backing Putin in the war against Ukraine. This is how far this goes, people. This goes from the Lee Harvey Oswald patsy assassination of JFK to this guy Dodik with Orban today in Bosnia. Here he is. I think he's at a conference there with Orban, the leader of Hungary, who was interviewed recently by Tucker Carlson in a great interview. These two guys are now on the outs with the EU. They're attempting to put him in jail. Confirms indictment. This is from 2 weeks ago. The Bosnian courts. The Bosnian court is the court that Murret controlled until his death very recently, I think a year or two ago when he died. That court is the court that is going to jail this guy because he refused to listen to them. Makes your head spin. It makes some dots, huh? I mean, there are dots here. Hold on. I want to show you some of these. This is the 2007 Bosnia-Herzegovina Democracy and Government Assessment right here. This is the actual rules I'm talking about for us running Bosnia. This is written by Murret. This is reforming the judiciary. These are documents written by Murret on how to take over the judicial system of Bosnia. So this is how the deep state works, folks. And here's the obituary photo of Eugene Murret on the right there. You'll see him there. And he was issuing articles and reports out of Bosnia for a number of years because he is a deep state operative. They took him from that Spring Hill College, from that Jesuit school where he brought in his cousin, Lee Harvey Oswald, to speak to the Jesuits and propelled him to, under the Clinton administration, into Bosnia to run their court system that led to the indictment of the leader of Bosnia 2 weeks ago. I'll take my messages off the air. Wow. And that's why the Murret family story is so important. That's where this thing goes. And Marilyn Dorothea Murret, she worked as long as she could as an operative. And so did this guy. The rest of them, John Boogie Murret ended up working for Squibb Pharmaceuticals as a salesman, became an executive, an ex-sports guy selling, prescriptions, as an executive. And the other guy was a dentist. I don't know what connection they had to any of this thing. Like I said, I've never found that. But these two, Eugene and Marilyn, are spooks. And that is why the Murret family is important. Nobody knows the stuff I just told you in this show. There is nobody on the earth. And I'll talk about it if anybody wants to talk about it in Dallas, the documents that I have. And there's hundreds of documents that I've had since 2013 when I went down this rabbit hole regarding East-West and how it ties into Hawaii and who runs the thing in Hawaii. The Obama clan runs it in Hawaii. And Dunham, the mother, did the same thing. She went around the world as a phony anthropologist, finding out who were communists and who weren't, and working with John Brennan in the episode that we talked about earlier, CIA and the Family. I urge you to take a look at that because this is another edition of CIA and the Family. They tried to make this family look like it was linked to the mob. Nah, that dog didn't hunt. That dog didn't hunt.
Wow, amazing. Amazing. Mm-hmm. And what a crazy break that 2 weeks ago, it's coming right full circle.
Right. That's why I moved this story up, because of that arrest and because of his attempts to end the Ukrainian war. The leader there who refused to follow this committee, this overlord committee, because they're still under control of the Dayton Accords, which we implemented, and they're trying to get out of, rightfully so, as a nation or half a nation.
Wow. Well, you got some people happy here. Basil Beshkov is celebrating.
How do you like that, Bashkov? How do you like that? Huh? Was that worth $50?
Well, it gets better. World Deep State exposed. Hallelujah. And then Thank you. Thank you.
Hey,
Thank you.
thanks,
Thank you.
bro. Thank you. No, thank you. I mean, I've had this information for a while, and I just wanted to find the right time to put it together. And because of the indictment of Dodik, who may go down in history as a great peacemaker, the time was right. The time was right.
Wow, this is insane. So we've got a lot of support coming in here. Kim Olson, how are you not at 100,000 subscribers yet? I'm not buying it. This
Come
is the
on.
best channel on YouTube.
What are you gonna say? Come on, Kim. I mean, like, you think we upset some people or what? I mean, nobody knows this shit.
All I can say is remember to subscribe. There's a bell for
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I mean, how about the least you can do is subscribe? You don't even have to go to Dallas.
Ironically, those of you who aren't, there's 2,591 people watching on YouTube right now. We are within 1,400 from 100K.
Really?
Yes.
Boy, that's damn close, Hunley. That's damn close.
Yeah, well, we're eking along. Michael Atherton, I'll come just for the buffet. I'm a fan.
Yeah, just come for the buffet, Michael. What's the big deal? I mean, you eat, you kibitz, and you get the hell out. You know, you get to see Dealey Plaza. I mean, it's not going to be so bad.
And Pamela Clifton, meathead is a meathead in real life.
You know, look, he's not the sharpest tack, but I'll give credit to Scott. Is that you? Is that
Yeah,
you?
it's me for once.
Okay. Well, there's fires everywhere. I'll give Scott Adams a lot of credit because he was talking about the guy, what's his name, Michael Benz.
Benz, I think, tipped him on it. Yeah.
Yeah, he did. But what he came up with is in Hollywood they don't need actors, the deep state. They only need directors because no one, and I never thought of this. I got to give credit to Scott Adams. Nobody will ever criticize a working director, and that's why a lot of them got off on the Me Too stuff. Because they were working directors and they are the most valuable commodity in the Hollywood food chain. And what Adam said is all they need is like half a dozen directors under their wing and nobody will challenge them. And I sent you a link to what they did with Moby, for instance, and what they've done with Meathead, with Rob Reiner. They simply take over your Twitter and social media accounts. You agree to have the intelligence agencies run your social media. Moby actually said that he gave it to him to get Trump back in the day.
I want to do that on Friday. Hopefully we can cover.
Yeah, I sent you a couple of those articles, right?
Yeah. I figure that Friday we definitely have to get into that because there's a
right. So I mean, this was in 2017 when Moby turned his over. But I think turning them over to the intelligence operatives, especially when they ran Twitter, allowed, as Scott Adams points out, Rob Reiner to tweet nonstop 24/7 as if his hair's on fire. And it's not Rob Reiner. It's them doing this, not Rob Reiner. And now they've sent Rob Reiner to speak on the Kennedy assassination. Now, Rob Reiner famously did a Hallmark Hall of Fame treatment of LBJ with Woody Harrelson, a movie that is, makes him out to be a guy who simply has bad bathroom manners, but nothing about the assassination, of course. And what that does is it blocks the lane for other movies to come down that pike. Sometimes they'll just block the lane. That's what Priscilla McMillan did with the Marina Oswald book. Not that she did it. They bought the rights to Marina Oswald's life. A CIA film company in Italy bought the movie rights. They later evaporated that film company, so her movie rights were gone. And then the book didn't come out for almost 10, 15 years because they wanted to bury the life story of Marina Oswald. And then it was eventually written by Priscilla McMillan, who Max Good outed as a spook in his movie about Ruth Paine. Beautifully outed her. They have these authors. And now the last part I want to mention is that there's a guy named Alex Gibney who is now coming out with yet another hatchet job, this time on Elon Musk. Gibney's father was famously CIA, Operation Mockingbird at Newsweek. He begged Dulles to get him out of it. He was there for a number of years as a CIA operative. Alex Gibney is a family operative. The money is always funneled through Universal Pictures from the intelligence organizations. Universal just being a funneling device. None of the money comes from Universal. And he has now finished his documentary on Elon Musk, which will be a hatchet job on Elon Musk, like it was on Assange. That's who Alex Gibney is, folks. And you could say, well, I really loved blah, blah, blah. That's not the point. They don't make bad product when they have to get their point across. They make stuff like Animal Farm in England, when that first came out, the most expensive animation film ever made. They make good product, and Alex Gibney is part of that machine.
Yeah, for sure. Elizabeth Borden, I'm related to Arthur Middleton, signer of the American Declaration of Independence. I'm glad I was never approached to be a spy.
Well, I'm sure there's others in your family who were. They just didn't tell you about it over dinner.
True. I love all your Tuesday programs. They're always excellent. Thank you.
Apparently not as popular as some of the other stuff, which is really odd.
It depends on the week. This one will probably do well because it's Oswald adjacent. Mm-hmm. Pasha, as great as Ziggy is, I'm not asking for trading cards, but I'm thinking that some sort of family tree graph would help me follow this. Thoughts? It's confusing.
You could go to their ancestry.com, and on the right-hand side, if you put in Charles Murret on ancestry.com, you'll see the whole family tree.
Yeah.
How about that?
Al Gonzalez, got my in-person tickets for Lancer. Mark, when you say O'Reilly uses a ghostwriter, is that well known in literary circles?
Well, no. He's not even a ghostwriter. I think there's the guy's name's on the book.
Yeah, with blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. That's not a ghostwriter. I mean, that book is written by the other guy. I mean, he's not a ghostwriter on that book. And I think the same thing's true for Roger Stone, right, Eric? Or
it could be. Yeah, I don't
says
know.
With someone else. Usually when it says with someone else, it's a celebrity working with a ghostwriter who's ghostwritten enough books to get his name on the book. Just, the food chain. Whoever the ghostwriter is usually an invisible ghostwriter for a number of major books. And when they finally sell, he gets the bona fides of being on the book cover with the guy.
Or they couldn't afford to pay him, so they got to put his name on the cover as a form of payment. It was one way or another. Because
his payday goes up and up and up each book he does.
Sure.
So he's not going to go backwards. I mean, it's just same as your screenwriting fee in Hollywood. You don't go backwards, but you can get paid to remove your name from a film. I mean, they can pay you to take your name off of.
And a lot. I mean, it can be quite a lot for ghostwriting.
William Goldman, I think, wrote the film with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon that put them on the map.
Good Will Hunting?
Yeah. Goldman wrote that and had his name paid to have it. Oh, breaking story. Had his name. Yeah, the guy paid him was Harvey Weinstein.
Okay.
But it got them best screenplay in the Oscars, which is what Weinstein wanted. So it was worth the price for Weinstein.
Oh, I'm sure it was. Let me see. John Wester. Make an episode about Roscoe White and the theory he was a shooter who worked as a photograph expert at the Dallas Photo or DPD. Supposedly, they found photos in the box at the DPD archives that show the Oswald backyard photo was a fake.
Oh, it was a fake. I mean, but I don't need to do an episode on Roscoe White. He's just another corrupt cop. There's not really much there except that White was involved in the forgeries of the photos.
All right. Greg Petrelli wants to know, is there truth to Robert Morrow's claim that JFK knew about operational missiles in Cuba as early as 1960?
Well, it's not 1960, but he was informed by the intel divisions of the United States in 1961, maybe 1960. I don't know. It's at least 61. And that he believed Khrushchev and his back channel people over his own intel people. That's been established as a historical fact. They were ripping their hair out, including Curtis LeMay that we described in the LeMay episode, I think in part 2, Eric, where LeMay was losing his mind that they were believing the Soviets over them. I mean, imagine that. How crazy that sounds like. And then they didn't know what to do because it became obvious that every intel group in the food chain knew there were missiles there.
Yeah, no. Can you recommend a good book on the Chicago plot?
There is no book on the Chicago plot. There's an article.
Bolden, maybe? Does he talk about it?
No. There's a book. There's an article by a guy named Black that was in the Chicago Village Voice. I think it's called the Chicago Reader, the alternative newspaper of Chicago, written by a guy named Black. That is a real long-form article, and that's the definitive article on the Chicago plot for those who are at home.
Okay.
Whatever the alternative paper is of Chicago Reader, I think it is, whatever their LA Weekly is.
All right. Lisa Stiles, MIT degreed engineer and stats geek disabled by Obamacare here. I SO and discuss advanced stats analysis and activism, but can't travel alone. I'm trying. Are there partial refunds if I can't make it?
Just go on virtual. Just do the virtual ticket.
Yeah.
What are you knocking yourself out for? Just do the virtual ticket.
Oh, here we go. Sorry. Whoops. Cut and paste issues. I so want to go to conference in Dallas, and then the rest in my previously super chat. I'm egghead, but also flighty.
Okay. All right. Well, if you can't go, get the virtual ticket is all I'm saying. I don't know about each person's status, but I mean, if you physically or financially can't make it for airlines and hotel reasons, you could get the ticket virtually.
Yeah, no, totally agree. We've got a Rumble rant here from Tommy Jekyll. I did not think I could get more turned around than I did last night with Barnes trying to explain how RFK Jr. running as an independent assists Trump. You one up that. We'll talk about RFK on Friday for sure.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it today, but thanks.
And then we've got a tip on locals here. Is this where it starts with their family, Oswald's cousins? Is there a secret history of the parents or grandparents yet to be revealed?
Of who? Of this is, the Murrets, you mean, or?
I guess. I mean,
no. This is one particular family. There's others, But I'm just saying this is a family unit that was the Oswald family is part of this because he's coming out of an orphanage, has no background, has no father. This is how they pick these people, and then the Murrets. It's quite obvious what they're up to as a family. So. It becomes a family thing because they can trust them more. And Oswald was on a mission in the Soviet Union, and she knew about that. She knew about that Oswald was in Minsk, and she lied to the Warren Commission. But like I said, Dulles is sitting right there. They just don't want this on the record, from her talking about it. So Liebler goes off on these different tracks. But there's no question, when Garrison says, ask the question, played by Kevin Costner and JFK, they don't ask the question, which is the one question: how are you able to go around the world for 3.5 years on a teacher's salary? For Christ's sakes, how is that possible? They don't ask that because it open up an entire.
Because they know the answer.
They know the answer. They know the answer.
Oh, Bob's their horse wants to know for the virtual event will face masks be required?
That's funny. That's funny.
I won't tell you what to do in your house.
Yeah.
Mo Bishop, seriously, can we not get this channel past 100K?
No, whatever you do, don't do it. Go in reverse. I would say unsubscribe because that'll really screw up the algorithm of YouTube. And then they'll freak out and they'll say something's wrong and they'll hit their subscribe buttons at the command headquarters in Omaha, Nebraska.
Yeah, that's exactly what will happen. Remember, Mark is not the technically oriented person here.
It made sense to me.
And Colonel Lansdale is requesting a detailed episode on himself.
Yeah, he's on the list. We'll get there. Keep your shirt on, Lansdale. Keep your shirt on, Operation Lansdale.
Johnny from Donnie. Who's that tool who talks shit on Joe Rogan's show?
Who?
I don't know. I'd have to see which.
Which fool are you talking about? Which tool?
Oh, it might be the CIA Baker, Mike Baker.
Oh, I don't know. I mean,
maybe I don't know.
Look, if you're getting your JFK assassination information from anybody who said they used to work for the CIA, you're a bigger schmuck than I could possibly imagine.
But they'd know. No. Al Gonzalez, $5. Thank you. And Johnny from Donnie again. Ex-CIA talks like we are all in kindergarten.
Sounds familiar. It might be that guy Baker. I don't know. I try not to watch these guys. I don't have time to watch CIA tell me about JFK. It's a little much.
Okay, we got a smart ass here. Michael, see you guys next year at the conference. Thanks for getting the word out about it.
What do you mean next year?
This year, Michael. This year.
Oh, he doesn't know. Oh, it's in November. Okay, so November 17th is a Friday. I think we're going to be on Saturday late afternoon in case people want to really nail it down. So and then Sunday, there's stuff Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I do want to do interviews with Eric and these rock stars that are there for long form stuff.
Perfect. Hey, RGRRPH, Helvey is her name on Rumble, said, my mom always has trouble figuring out Christmas gifts for me. Guess who's getting a virtual ticket for the Dallas seminar?
Wow, bravo.
Very good idea.
Very good. It's a gift that keeps on giving. It's Thanksgiving. Right?
Oh, hell yeah. And Al Gonzalez, Mark, if the crowd at Lancer is in a frenzy and shouting for a come on, Bobby,
absolutely.
Give it to us.
No, absolutely. If there's a chant, when they start chanting, come on, Bobby, I will, of course. It's so funny because I don't know that these people, the other speakers, know what they're in for, because it's going to be all of us. It's going to be all our audience in the audience. I don't know who these people are going to think that the audience is. It's going to be very funny.
All right. And Michael said spell check got him this year. Okay, Michael. I feel better. All right. Well, crazy ass story. Next up, we have Freeform Friday, and there's been a couple things going on recently. Some people
people in the news.
People are running for office. We've got a change in Congress that's just been voted on today. Oh, here we go. Any merch news, especially the cards? Weinstein never showed any dark side to his family, all bottled up, even his business aggression. A generous man.
I think there's multiple ideas in there. What we believe happened to Weinstein is through the Obamas. He had taken on stupidly Malik Obama as an intern in his office and somehow offended Malik Obama, either her overhearing something or something happened in that office that put him on the death list of Michelle and Barack Obama. And she ends up being a creditor, even though she was an intern, oddly enough, in the lawsuits against Weinstein and his company. I don't know how she ended up being on the lawsuits, but I think they were initiated by Obama's people against the Weinstein company. And that's a story for another day, my friends.
Oh, yeah. All right. And it's fad. That is true. With a virtual ticket, you have 30 days to watch. However, you can buy a download.
What?
Which is another option, and you can have that forever, as far as I know.
Well, 30 days is not enough to watch it. You need like 90 days.
Hey, people watch our shows multiple times, dude.
Oh, but you're saying you could download it.
You could pay for the download. There's the virtual ticket, which is just, basic thing. You can watch it, whatever. You can pay more for a download. People who are going in person, a lot of times they will also buy a download.
Yeah.
Just so they have it.
Yeah, and it's a great idea. It's a great idea. Very good.
Now, Raga sent in a tip saying, Mark, have you read Who Paid the Piper? The CIA and the Cultural Cold War.
I think I have that book here. I don't know. I'm going to have to look at my JFK book list. If I don't, I'm going to have to get it through the PayPal generosity and Venmo generosity of the JFK Book Fund people, who I'm going to give a shout out on Friday. There's a couple more that I need to thank for donating money for the books. But yeah, that's on my list. I don't have it. I do have to get that book.
Oh, yeah, and it's $51 for the hardcover, $24.38 for the paperback.
That's pretty cheap, but still,
compared to some, yeah,
compared to some in the JFK universe, that's pretty cheap.
And Otto said, "Have never seen Groubert so giddy to do a story. Keep up the good work."
It's a great story. That's why I'm giddy about it, fucko. I mean, it's wonderful.
Hey, Oswald says, "Be nice."
Be nice. Well, he's flying coach, so I mean, what does he care? Thanks, Otto. I was really giddy about that. It's a great story.
Brian C, fantastic content. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. We definitely will.
Yeah, nobody's got this shit, bro. I mean, we take it for granted, me and Eric, but I'm telling you right now, I don't want to, say anything other than there's all these other stupid channels. They don't have anything like this shit. You know what I mean? I've dedicated my life to doing this research, and there's tons more coming. There's a lot more individual people that we're going to do shows on, minor people that you've never even barely heard of. but it's a bigger subject than most average people understand.
Well, it's like I love the Dinkin episode because he is kind of a nobody but big story.
Mm-hmm.
So stuff like that I look forward to.
Oh, who knows about Eugene Murret? They do now.
Yeah.
They do now. I guess I wish I would have done it while he was still alive, but he's been dead for 2 years. So,
Yeah, I don't know if he died before the channel was built, but he died in 2021.
Yeah, pretty recently.
So.
These guys all live to be 99.
I know, that's crazy. Look,
That-
we're still kicking around. I mean,
The deep state keeps you alive. They have you on life support. That's part of the deal when you sell your soul to the deep state devil.
I wonder if Ruth Payne's going to be at Kappa.
If they wheel her in an iron lung, I understand she's in a nursing home, but if they wheel her in with oxygen like Dianne Feinstein, maybe.
I mean, classic.
Yep.
All right. So on that note, Friday.
What happens on Friday? Oh,
Friday.
Friday.
Friday, dude. Lots going down. There's some different opinions in our neck of the internet, if you will, which are fun. Always agree.
No, I know. If people are going crazy because not everybody agrees on every single thing. I mean, it's okay. I mean, it shakes out in the end anyway. I mean, I've said stupid things. Other people said stupid things. I mean, it's not set in stone. And it's not. And I'll tell you something. I've evolved all kinds of opinions. I mean, it takes more research. It's not a work it's a work in progress. It's not set in stone. I read more stuff. Some things come to light. I'm able to change my mind. The retards are the ones who can't change their minds. Those are the people who are in trouble. People have the same opinion they had when they were 19 years old. That's a little scary.
I have no idea what this story is. Sad day for America when a 24-year-old gets shot live on television.
You're talking about Oswald getting shot.
Oh, okay. Wow.
By Ruby, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, that happened a minute ago. Ralph Yates and the second Oswald complete with curtain rods. Interesting.
Again, you have to write a sentence that I understand.
Yeah,
I don't understand. What is this? Like a lot of them are like fortune cookies or haikus that a guy opens up this thing and it says, "You will have the dog of the week on Dynamite Day." Go, whoa.
Yeah, it can be confusing. Susie C sent a tip saying, "Love you guys." Raga sent a tip with a picture of who paid the piper. So Raga.
Raga, we know. We just need the funding to get the goddamn book, Raga.
Well, Raga has it. He's teasing us.
No, Raga. He's got a huge pizza, and he's sending us photos of his pizza. I'd like a slice of the pizza, Raga.
Yeah, I mean, hey, Okay,
also, Friday, remind me to talk about Trevor Bauer, the Dodger pitcher, and we'll show that clip if we can about Bauer. We got the playoffs starting on Saturday, so it's on my mind.
Awesome.
And we got, like Eric said, some other presidential hijinks going on and debate. It's going to be a muddy deep state year. You're going to have to be able to delineate from deep state storylines, and they will be coming fast and hard about the people that you love in politics. So you have to be able to not buckle under the weight of propaganda that's being created right now.
So on that note, see everybody Friday, and we'll keep the fight.
Oh, thanks, Eric. Thank you. Telephone call.